California takes a God-given right and sells it back to you for a profit. Florida has a gun registry. And our special guest, John Petrolino. This is The Loaded Mic, and I'm Dan Wass. The state of California is really getting comfortable with reselling rights. They've taken the handgun permitting process to new levels of unconstitutionality with fees as high as $976 in Santa Clara County and a whopping $1,328 in San Jose County for new concealed carry permits. Now, San Jose Sheriff's Department justified the charges due to the new cost related to expanded application vetting requirements after the passage of Senate Bill SB2. After it toughened the permitting process by including additional background checks, verifications, and interviews, enhanced training requirements, an expanded list of sensitive places, and a variety of other unconstitutional requirements. Now, with this new increased fee, and after factoring in all costs, which will include mandatory psych evaluations, applicants in Santa Clara County can expect to pay up to $2,000 to complete the entire process required to carry concealed. Now, not only has the state of California found a way to profit off a God-given right, but the requirements before even entertaining the idea of carrying a gun in public are even more egregious by creating many ways to fail the application process. So a few of these pitfalls include timelines for application submissions, renewal deadline dates, and the potential denial for simple errors made throughout the very extensive process. Now, they don't make it easy, but that's the idea. As part of the extensive list of requirements to obtaining a handgun license and for the purpose of manipulating the process as they wish, the state of California, along with others, have adopted the good moral character requirement. Now, this means a person's morality is now a metric by which permits will be issued. Of course, good moral character is never specifically defined, nor could it ever be. The irony of this requirement is that many of those in authority, those who will be determining the moral character of an applicant, and those who create these types of legislation are often known to be compromised in the area of morals themselves. For more Second Amendment content, check out my Good Gun, Bad Guy book series at goodgunbadguy.com. So we're going to talk about this and many other things with, he doesn't harass people online, he just points out their flaws. John Chiera. And his online privileges have been revoked due to an unfortunate incident in a comment section. Anthony Diso.
Scumbag.
And he's the pen patriot from New Jersey, writer for Bearing Arms and News 2A, and all-round authority on things that go bang. John Petrolino.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Dan. How's everyone doing?
Good. Hey. We're good. We're good over here. How's things in Jersey? Jersey.
Not too bad. Let me fix my screen. The top of my head was cut off. Things are just as, infringed as they usually are. We're trying to keep our heads above water. We have a gubernatorial election that's going on. The primaries are June 10th. So I've been trying to cover that as much as I can. And, just living the dream, Dan.
Well, it's too bad we can't have you in person because we always have a blast when you're here in New York. But I wanted to, we got so many things we could talk about. I wanted to kind of put a focus here on California a little bit because they're just getting out of their freaking minds. Thankfully, we got people like San Diego gun owners down there trying to keep them on task. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing their shirt today. So just a little shout out to our friends over there, San Diego gun owners. But John, what do you think about what's going on with the results from SB2?
I mean, it's a continual fallout of post-Bruin garbage. And some of the things, and this is also the training requirements and mandates that, I spoke to Joe Dramisi about, a couple of weeks ago. And I think you looked at some of that coverage, right?
Oh, yeah. I think we got I think we got that article here. That was the training. You wrote you wrote the article on bearing arms training and the law in California post Bruin with Joe Dramisi, right?
So Joe Dramisi is actually, he's a board member of San Diego County Gun Owners. He's a great guy. He's a good advocate. He's a good activist. He's also a writer. I implore everyone to check out his work at getagrip.substack.com. And Joe is, he's kind of an authority on this because he's been doing firearms training for a lot of years out there, and they really do keep their finger on the pulse. And one of the things that their Department of Justice, or whatever their authorities did, was the lengthening of class time that it takes to be able to teach the concealed carry licensing classes. So pretty much they've almost doubled the amount of the training requirements, which, as what that's going to do to the cost of training is also going to at least double as well. So we all know that. And here, let's go on the record. I think everybody that's in this conversation are proponents of and fans of training, and training is important. I will not debate that any day of the week. But when it comes to just being able to exercise the right, we shouldn't be really having any of these requirements. So now you've already had a small, we'll do like training requirement that they used to have. It wasn't as onerous at all. It was, kind of in and out just for your possession and buying a firearm. But then to get the carry license, you had to take a bona fide class. And previously, some of like the NRA basic pistol classes. Now, don't hold my feet to the fire on what was or wasn't accepted, but now they're requiring so much more for students to take in order to, be covered. And then also the instructors also have to have even more training. And yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, John. But here's where I stand on that. And most of my friends are firearm trainers, which is so. Of course, we all support firearm training. We all believe that everybody should know their firearms well. The problem I have with it, and you'll probably agree with me, is that when it becomes government mandated, and not only that, but when the government is able to manipulate the training, the course study, for instance, that's when your training is required by the government and can be changed and altered and made impossible by the government too. So I love the idea of training. I think everybody should be trained, especially if you're carrying a gun. But the idea that governments can mandate it, because whatever governments can give, they can take away. And that's the part that I don't like. I don't know about you guys, how you guys feel about it.
I agree.
That's it. That's all he's got.
That's all he's got. One liner.
Roll the credits, Danny. We're done.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Oh, yeah. Look, California is just full of, 80% dirtbags.
80% dirtbags.
Just like, that's like here. We got a money grab. What's our course? 800?
Yeah.
It's up to 800 now?
Yeah.
To get it all through the packet and then just say, no.
Yeah, exactly. John, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm just, again, if you apply this to anything else, I mean, to get a driver's license, all you have to do is pass your driving test. You don't have to go through all kinds of crazy, wacky race car driving and training and stuff. So, I mean, again, it's a right. It's not a privilege.
Well, that's the point Johnny P's making, is that it's not like a driving, it's not like a license. It's a God-given right. There shouldn't be any regulation, permitting, or anything like that. Right, Johnny P? We'll call you Johnny P today.
That's fine. I agree. Now, and this shouldn't be the entrance, like a barrier to entering into exercising this right, by no stretch of the imagination. And for people who are trainers, and I've noticed this, I'm a trainer too. Now, I'm not running the John Petrolino Academy of firearms training, but I have trained quite a few people. And when you have compulsory versus non-compulsory training, always, all day, every day, the non-compulsory training is going to be a better, a better experience, because these are people that are interested in the training. So
Right.
I've always had a better experience as a trainer for folks that were just wanting to, increase their knowledge. They wanted to learn about the subject versus they needed a training certificate to tick off a box that said that they're trained.
Right.
And then that makes your job really difficult, especially if you're dealing with, say, somebody that is an experienced shooter. Then you have to, go through the whole process of dealing with, maybe some biases that are already there, but you might also have a perfect student, right? But if it's a checkbox that you have to just tick off, it turns into a waste of time. People want to do the bare minimum, as opposed to the training. Like if I were to go take a training class, like I'm going to jump into it with 2 feet,
Right.
full on, and be the best student I absolutely can. And as a matter of fact, I had taken some training a couple of years ago, and I didn't talk about my experience as a trainer. I didn't talk about my experience as an author, that I had written a book on firearms and firearm safety. I just showed up, and I felt my job was to be the best student that I possibly could be. And again, this was non-compulsory training. This is training I wasn't required to take. And at the end of the class, like right before the end, the instructor said, "Oh, by the way, I just wanted to, thank you for not grandstanding," because that's what happens. If you end up in some of these training dynamics, you have somebody that already has some experience, you're required to take this, then you have people that are grandstanding, that takes away from the experience. No, it's our job to be the best students we possibly could. So in California, I mean, I don't want to say that they're doing damage, but they are doing damage, because financially this is creating issues for people that do want to exercise their right. And not only that, that's taking away from the people that want to do non-compulsory training, because you're clogging up the system with nonsense that they've decided to double the requirements.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And the thing that really that I hate the most about what California is doing, like in SB2, and what New York is doing in the Concealed Carry Improvement Act, is the gun-free zones, I should say the sensitive locations. This is one of those things that just really gets under my skin, because what they've done is they've said, okay, we have to, because of Bruin, we reluctantly have to give you your gun rights, but we're going to make every place you would go off limits. This is the thing that really annoys me. I know Anthony gets pissed off too.
Again, it's like, are we lessening the amount of criminals because of these kind of rules and regulations? I mean, the people that are going through the trouble to legally get their concealed carry permit are not people that are going to go out and shoot people up at a mall or a school or something. This is what's constantly ignored, though. It just kills me that gun owners in general are the most law-abiding citizens there are. And all these laws are there thinking that we're supposed to swallow it, that they're going to help us take down criminals and stuff.
We're supposed to believe that these restrictions are going to save lives, when the truth is, JP, maybe the number of people killed in gun-free zone, the percentage of killings that are happening in gun-free zone. I think it was 90-some%, right?
It's up there, and beyond that, yes, that's very true. It's a very high percent, like 80-90%. And Dr. John Lott recently released a paper he did with another gentleman, and they were comparing, and I think this is important because it all ties together, civilian response to a so-called active shooting event, right?
Oh, yeah.
And what they found was, in comparison to a police response, the civilian response was much more effective than the police response. Right. Now, that's not to say it's because police are ineffective and they're not prepared or not able to do this. I think it has more to do with the fact that you had a carrier there that was able to respond.
The police aren't there.
Yeah, and a uniformed police officer is going to be a target because they're uniformed. And that's a really important study to look up for those of you who are interested in this topic. So I covered that. I talked about that over at Bearing Arms. But if you go over to John Lott's site, he's got all of that research over there covering these statistics. But time and time again, we're finding that the gun-free zone areas that are sensitive locations are just grounds for slaughter for people, and we're finding that civilian response to these shooting events is highly effectual.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Hey, let me get to one of our sponsors real quick. Our friends over at Gun Owners of America. So you want to know who's fighting for your gun rights? Well, it's Gun Owners of America. So GOA is the No Compromise Gun Rights Group. So I urge everyone to become a member at gunowners.org. What have they done? Well, GOA has secured a preliminary injunction against the ATF pistol brace rule. GOA members submitted a record 85,000 plus comments opposing the ATF's universal registration check rule. They helped enact permitless carry in Nebraska and Florida. And GOA secured victories in California, Illinois, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. Plus, they won 2 legal victories against the ATF's zero tolerance policy. And GOA fought to overturn Joe Biden's ban on funding hunter education shooting sports and archery in schools. So with all the constant attacks on our Second Amendment, we often ask ourselves, well, what can I do about it? Well, this is what you can do. You can become a member at gunowners.org and help us save the Second Amendment. So Johnny P, what are your final thoughts on red flag, or gun-free zones? And then I know you wanted to get back on the last topic we were talking about, I think, at least if I could read your mind.
So the sensitive locations, and this is something that Joe highlighted in our interview when we discussed this. It's a total sham, aside from the fact that you're leaving people vulnerable, but then you're also, states like New Jersey and California, New York, all of these places that have come up with these sensitive location Bruin response laws, they're making a very, very unsafe situation. So now Joe outlined a scenario where he was out with his wife, they're doing whatever, and then they decided they wanted to go to some place for a type of, a calamari that they like to eat. And well, that location serves alcohol on the premises, so that's a so-called sensitive location. So now here he is, he's armed, and he's talking about, well, now I have to be in my truck or his vehicle. It's a confined space. He has to unholster his firearm. He has to clear his firearm. He's got to eject that round. He's got to put it into another separate holster, put it into his console vault, lock it up. And now you're leaving the vehicle, walking across the parking lot to the establishment, which that's the most vulnerable place that you're going to be, is traversing a parking lot, and then nevertheless being disarmed in the restaurant. And then you're going to leave that restaurant and you're going to get back to your vehicle. And then you have to make the decision, well, do I want to rearm right now and, go through that hassle to rearm myself and do this in an enclosed area in a vehicle where it really is unsafe to do and you have to wrangle it? Or do I want to just drive home disarmed with my firearm locked in a lockbox? And these are the decisions that people have to make. And not only are they unsafe, physically, the acts of doing these, disarming and rearming is unsafe to do, but you're also leaving the people vulnerable when they're disarmed. And I think that the whole sensitive location thing, this was discussed heavily in oral arguments in the Coons and Siegel case at the, I believe this was the Federal District Court of New Jersey, where they were really talking about this. And the places that Bruin and the analogs for what is a sensitive location, the analogs are really narrowed down to places of government function and courthouses, and that's really it. That not even schools weren't on that list, airports weren't on that list. Now we understand that we're going through a sanitized location when we're in an airport. That's a completely different ball of wax, because the assumption is that we're all disarmed and that we're all agreeing to these rules in order to fly on an airplane. That's a completely different thing. But the minimum, or really the maximum level of sensitive location, is places of government function. And by that, really courthouses, like legislative bodies are even, questionable, right? And that's what the historical analog is. And the more that gets pointed out, the better we are, because We need that message to be out there. No, like, we're not going to settle for, oh, county parks or state parks. It's ridiculous.
Right. And then, it's even worse than that, because, Kathy Hochul with her Concealed Carry Improvement Act in New York decided that she's going to go even one step further and deem all private businesses gun-free zones unless you have written permission by means of a sign or actual permission from the owners to carry. So everything is deemed a gun-free zone, private businesses. So she made this decision for these businesses without their consent. You are a gun-free zone if you're a private business in New York, unless you decide you want to put a sign up that says otherwise. And businesses just won't put us. The ones who don't want to have you carry your gun in their business will put a sign up that says no guns allowed. But the ones who don't mind, how many of them are going to actually put a sign up saying guns are welcome?
They'll have protesters out in front of their store.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
and the thing with all of these laws, and I know you're pegging Kathy Hochul on this. I mean, I've got the internet, you've got the internet. So let's lay all of the cards out on the table. These are all very, very similar, if not the same, Bruin response laws. They're all on the same page.
Exactly.
The gun grabbers are all knowing what they're doing. It's the same thing in New Jersey. It's the same thing in California. I believe same thing in Hawaii, where it's private property that's still open to the public is off limits. The vampire rule is what Rob Romano from Firearms Policy Coalition calls it. The vampire rule, where you have to be invited in to be able to have your firearm. And this is all lockstep. If you look at what's being enjoined and what's not being enjoined, one of the things is the private property open to the public needing that permission. That's been enjoined in most of these challenges. I don't know if that's the case in New York. What is New York's current law?
Well, currently a few of those things got knocked down. At least four or maybe five of those components. I'm pretty sure it was the sensitive locations for private businesses. It was churches. It was there was some other the social media requirements and all this stuff. So there was a bunch of stuff that was knocked down, and they were even deemed unenforceable. But they haven't been taken off the books yet. So this is the thing that New York does: is they'll create these laws, the courts will knock them down, and they'll still keep them in place. It's just
but they're not.
Well, and that's something. Oh, go ahead, Anthony. I'm sorry.
They're not effective. If we get caught in a restaurant, then it doesn't. If the Supreme Court ruled on it, then it being on the books don't mean anything.
It does, because you got to go to court to fight it.
That's fine, but the thing is, why is this is what pisses me off about America. We have a Supreme Court and no one listens to them.
Yeah.
What's the point?
And you know what? Most of the time, if court cases are won at the Supreme Court level, the justices won't say this is unenforceable. They even added the unenforceable part to these gun law components of concealed carry.
Then once it goes to court, it's going to get thrown out anyway, because it's unenforceable by the Supreme Court.
But look what happened with Bruin. Bruin was a result of existing law, New York state gun laws, and after Bruin basically wiped it off the table and said, this is ridiculous, it's all unconstitutional, it's done, you're done. 8 days after, and John, I don't know if you knew this, but you probably did, but 8 days after the Bruin case, Concealed Carry Improvement Act was unveiled.
So you're going to tell me that wasn't written in advance.
Exactly.
So they knew this was coming, and
Right.
states like New Jersey did not prepare for having to issue this stuff. They should have. But I want to go back a couple of paces, and I want everyone to pay attention, because I think this is important. Number one, that's the New York Supreme Court that made those rulings, right? Let's make that clear.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so I want to make sure everybody understands that it wasn't the Supreme Court.
Exactly.
And the New York Supreme Court is a little bit different than, say, the way other courts work in other states. But that's the New York Supreme Court that's enjoined portions of that law. But pay attention, the areas in hostile locations, New York, New Jersey, California, maybe Hawaii. I'm not paying as much attention to Hawaii, but they have something sitting pending cert with the Supreme Court. Anyhow, the stuff that also got introduced to these same states, the areas that are hostile to the Second Amendment, the stuff that's being enjoined is similarly being enjoined in these areas. Again, the vampire rules seems to be getting enjoined. Some of these other sensitive locations, the social media stuff, a lot of that stuff is being enjoined. So not only are the legislators on the same page, but it looks like the judiciary, and I'll say a semi-hostile judiciary, is on the same page too. So I want to point that out, that, you know, there may be kind of like a RICO-esque thing going on there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Hey, let me get you one of our sponsors here. I think, John, you know these guys too. The Cali Key. This device, the Cali Key, since we're talking about New York gun laws, but this device, the Cali Key, removes your AR from the definition of so-called assault weapon. Did you know that when so-called assault weapon ban lists are created, they exclude manually operated bolt-action firearms? So just by dropping the Cali Key into your direct impingement AR in the place of your semi-automatic BCG, you'll have a bolt-action rifle that falls outside the definition of an assault weapon. So you don't need to do anything else. So give the Cali Key a look, because with it, you could retain all your rifle's features, avoid registration complications, revive your black rifle sales if you're an FFL, regain the ability to do private party transfers, legally transport across hostile jurisdictions, hunt with your AR in areas like Pennsylvania, enhance long-range precision and quieter suppressed shooting. Cali Key also has state-specific expert attorney opinions on its website and supports grassroots Second Amendment organizations with its sales. Cali Key's mission is to empower customers and claw back our civil liberties. So go to calikey.com and use the discount code LOADED. All right, John. So where were you on that?
I think we were just about to put a nail in the coffin on Bruin response in California and New York. Just the dots that I just wanted to connect is there is a concerted effort, at least it seems to be. It's all the same, if not similar, restrictions that are being imposed, and we're getting similar enjoinments. Some courts are more hostile than others. And then right now, the one thing that everybody should be casting their eyes towards is actually New Jersey and the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, because you and I, all of us, we've been talking about this. Now we're going on years, because our Bruin response law was probably the second place in the runner-ups of who got what imposed when, because New York, they jumped on theirs.
It was. I think
quick.
New Jersey came right after New York, didn't they?
Correct. So December of 2022 is when our Bruin response or carry killer law was enacted and signed into law. And so we've been fighting that heavily since. And I think within 1 week, we had lawsuits launched asking for let me back up. Minutes after being signed, 2 lawsuits were launched, one by our state association, and the NRA was quietly behind them. And this is the interesting thing that I learned, that the NRA has supported like tons of cases that they're not listed as plaintiffs of, which really blew my mind. And they need to get their, messaging out there, because people need to know what they are supporting. So, but again, this is an ANJRPC NRA case. And then the other one was the Coons case, which was FPC and CNJFO, all these things that you and I talked about. But the point is, they were filed within minutes of the lawsuit, of the law being signed. And then within a week, we had emergency restraining orders. Within a couple of months, we had temporary injunctions. And now where are we? We're sitting at the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. And I think I've visited you guys twice since the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, arguments happened. And so those arguments happened in, I think, September of 2023, maybe October, September of 2023. And we've been sitting here waiting on a ruling from the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. And Third Circuit Court of Appeals, what's very interesting about the makeup of that court is that right now the way it's sitting is, let's say, 50-50 left of center, right of center, judges or justices on that court, with 2 vacancies or soon 2 to be vacancies that are going to be filled by a Trump appointee. So the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, which is traditionally a court that's known for business law because of Delaware, and everybody likes to incorporate in Delaware. You always see that in commercials and in the fine print. So, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals has always been very good about business law, but I mark my words, they're going to be the new proving ground for a lot of firearms laws that are in a bad jurisdiction like New Jersey, but a soon-to-be good district court. And I think that we should be getting an opinion. I was hoping mid-May, towards the end of May. Some people speculate June. Others thought it would have happened by April. But any day now, we should get something out of the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, and that's going to be a very interesting bellwether. And that's something I want everybody to look for and pay attention to.
Yeah, and you mentioned something that really gets us annoyed, is that these court cases take so long, and then not only that, they'll throw in new stuff as soon as they'll just create the same laws over and over again. But the length of time, I mean, Anthony talks about his girl Kathy Hochul all the time and how he can't stand the length of time it takes for this.
It just pisses our money away on stuff that shouldn't even be. Like I said, I don't understand our federal Supreme Court, where the words shall not be infringed, but they do not follow that rule.
Of course not.
So why the hell are you appointing people who are not going to follow the Constitution? So when the Supreme Court rules on something, that should be it. It shouldn't be, let me appeal this, let me appeal it again, let me appeal it again, let me appeal it again. No, it should be, no, you're done.
You know what? I mean, all these court. Go ahead.
We
Sorry.
need a reset. America needs a reset. I'm dead serious, man. We need a reset. It's not right. It's just the country's gone.
We talk about all the details and all the stuff of these court cases. Now we got John Petrolino here on the show to help us out with some of the more of the details. But the thing is, when you boil it all down, and John, tell me what you think of this. It really is about keeping those who would rise up and oppose tyranny unarmed. That's what it comes down to. It's the people who would love to take control of this country with that communist mindset, that Marxist mindset, even the socialists. They would love to see their political opposition unarmed and defenseless. And that's really what it comes down to. So they'll keep piling on more gun laws, even though the state courts and the Supreme Courts call them unconstitutional, say, no, you're wrong here. They'll still do it because they know that we're going to be fighting for years. The Bruen case took 7 years in court. They know we're going to be fighting for years in court. So it's just a matter of just keep loading the gun laws on, and we'll have to keep fighting them, and they'll just keep us busy in the courts. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts?
Well, this is the same process as all the district court judges trying to keep Trump from doing what he's trying to do,
Right.
So
right.
If we need to start fighting back on this stuff, we need to start fighting back.
It's constant. We're constantly
fighting. The Court of Appeals in Delaware can be a court that's an advocate for our side on these things. We should be shoving it down their throat, I think.
Yeah, we should. I just wanted, before we go to break, I wanted to make a mention, a notice that the two Johns are. Did you guys get together and look at, decide what you're going to wear for the show today?
Yep.
We were doing our morning Zoom that he and I do when we get ourselves dressed.
Go through our closets and pick out the right.
We both and I think if we're going to go on break, let's go on break, and we could talk about News 2A after that.
We can, yeah. I just wanted to definitely give these guys a mention because
it's kind of a quantum entanglement that we have the same clothes on.
Yeah, well, there's that
and the same name.
That's because we have
weird.
Because we have a wormhole that goes from New York to New Jersey.
I'll give you a wormhole.
All right. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with our guest, John Petrolino. We got so much more to talk about, so stick around.
The Cali Key removes your AR from the definition of an assault weapon. It lets you keep your rifle with all its features
avoid registration hassles, and transport in hostile jurisdictions. The Cali Key also lets you hunt in jurisdictions like Pennsylvania and enhances long-range precision shooting. Cali Key's expert legal opinions empower informed decisions, and sales help grassroots Second Amendment organizations. Cali Key is your tool to keep and equip your AR, empower yourself, and defend your civil rights.
Our founding fathers saw them coming over 200 years away. That's why they wrote the Second Amendment. Join us in the fight to preserve your gun rights and stop unconstitutional gun control. Gun Owners of America is the country's only no-compromise gun rights organization. Not only do we inform and educate, but we bring the fight to court and win. Your God-given right to keep and bear arms is our top priority. Become a member today and help us take back America. Join us at gunowners.org. All right, we're back. I wanted to get you guys' opinion on this. I recently wrote an article for AmmoLand. You can go to search my name, Dan Wass, and go to AmmoLand. You'll find my author page. But there's a somewhat of a gun. It appears there's somewhat of a gun registry happening in Jacksonville, Florida. Since 1987, it's been legal to carry concealed in government buildings in the state of Florida. Council member Nick Howland said publicly that although the state restricts localities from prohibiting the carrying of firearms in government buildings, the same month that Deegan, that's Mayor Deegan, took office, the private security guards started compiling lists of all those who were coming into the building with their firearms. So he said, here's a quote from him. He says, in those notebooks for 2 years, that information has been gathered. Florida's been a no registry state, so that's a clear violation of state law, Howland said. And they've been taking their first name, their last name, contact information, along with the type of firearm that they're carrying. So upon being confronted about the alleged violation of state rights and the investigation, a spokesperson for the city of Jacksonville said, out of respect, quote, out of respect and in full cooperation with their review, we won't be commenting further at this time. Attorney General James Uthmeyer said, if this is true, it's a serious breach of Florida law by the city of Jacksonville. Government gun registries are antithetical to the right of the people to keep and bear arms. My office is looking into this allegation and will be in contact with local officials to ensure those. Oh, I lost it here. But anyway, so even the AG is not in favor of what they're doing in Jacksonville. I have a lot more stuff in this article we talk about, but John, I wanted to see what your opinion was on this. If you knew anything about this, go ahead.
This was the first that I've heard about this story, and it's troubling. And the best thing that these officials can do is just cease and desist immediately, throw up their hands and say, whatever was going on is going on no more, and these notebooks have since been burned. But
they won't do that, though.
As you know, they won't do that. Why would they concede defeat? Why would they take responsibility for what they did? Because they won't.
Right.
But that would be the best case scenario for the city officials, etc. And what I don't get is, what is the purpose of that list? Like, I mean, I understand. Now, I want to make it very crystal clear. I do not agree with gun registries. I do not agree with them at all. But I understand a state gun registry. I understand a federal gun registry because you want to know who has the guns so they can take them away from you. I mean, that's simple. I can understand that. I don't condone it. But what is the purpose of Jacksonville doing this? What do they have to gain?
Yeah, and another thing is it was private security that was hired to do this, which is really interesting. It wasn't even government workers doing this. They literally hired private security to do this. And just to make a note of it, the violation of this law is a third-degree felony. The investigation will likely uncover the people who directed the private security to compile the alleged list of gun owners and firearms. Punishment for the crime could bring up to a $5 million penalty, and the attorney general may bring a civil cause of action to enforce the fines. Another thing is, this is not, I'm trying to find it here in the article, this is not something that can be, government funds can be used for the defense of this person. This person would have to come up with their own personal money to defend themselves in court. So what are you guys' thoughts on this?
GoFundMe, right?
Well, then, Mike.
But if you're a criminal, that's fine. If you're a law-abiding citizen, then nobody's
Oh,
gonna
come
give
to
you-
New York. Hochul will give you $10 million for your slush fund.
Oh, we're going to talk about Letitia James. Oh,
James.
my God. We could go
Yeah.
hours on her.
Imagine that. $10 million of our money just going to that dirtbag's defense
Oh, God.
that she's going to lose horribly on.
This is an example of the scumbaggery we have.
York
And
State.
douchebaggery. It's all going on in New York.
And what, baggage?
Douchebaggery.
Douchebaggery.
We got the rat-faced Botox monkey. And then we got Letitia James stealing our money for her own personal defense. Don't you wish that if you got sued, that you could just say,
Latita.
hey, Ratface, I need money for my defense.
Did
Yeah.
you call her Latita?
Latita. Hood rat.
I love you,
God.
Anthony. I love you.
Everybody loves
Oh,
Anthony.
they're so lucky I don't know in government, dude. I get thrown at it everywhere. I just, Hochul is horrible.
You like that picture I sent of her the other day?
Yeah, oh, the beaver. Yeah, she's just a disgusting, vile human being. And just to take our tax dollars and say, oh, hey, let me give that to you, even though she don't live in New York, she lives in Virginia, which also just defeats her purpose of being. She can't hold the position.
Are we talking about Letitia or are we talking
Yes.
about Ratface? Because she's on her way to getting into her own trouble with, was it perjury on some real estate
mortgage.
deals
Oh,
or
yeah, the
something?
mortgage.
I mean,
Right, exactly.
Her daddy was her husband. And
she's
blah,
got
blah,
some
blah.
problems coming. Yeah, she's got some
Yeah.
issues coming down the
Her-
line.
But she says she puts her residence as Virginia.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
hold AG in New York and live in Virginia.
Right, so-
It's in the Constitution. You can't do it.
Yeah. When Roger Stone
she's doing it.
Roger Stone said it perfectly. He said you're either living in New York at full time where you can be AG, or you're not. And if your personal residence is in another state, it immediately disqualifies you as AG.
But Hochul, again, just lets it ride.
Yeah.
That's
How
what
come there's no protest?
Is your attorney general elected, though? I think that's an important question. So New Jersey, our attorney general's appointed. So our governor's got one of the most powerful governorships in the country. Like it's like a rock, the powers that they're given. But they get to appoint the attorney general. Your attorney general is an elected official. Is that correct?
Yeah, she is elected. I don't know who would elect her, but if you remember, she said she ran on getting Trump. That was her whole campaign. So all the libs down in New York City and Albany, they elected her. Crazy
like
stuff.
I said, the government better go after her hard and do the right thing, because she has so many felonies on her belt for that, whatever she's up to.
Well, she's certainly not going to get reelected after this. That's one good thing.
I wouldn't be so sure about that.
I know.
Well, look, she gets elected.
Cuomo's coming back.
I was going to say Cuomo's coming back. So,
Well, he's under federal investigation.
Mr. Nipple Rings is trying to get back into the.
Yeah, he's got some. He just got subpoenaed for the murders in New York, so I don't know if he'll be running for mayor.
Oh man,
this state's a mess. Just napalm us.
Just
Let me know when it's coming so I can go to another state.
Oh, God. I want to get to one of our sponsors real quick. LifeWave is a non-transdermal patch that allows your body to produce its own natural pharmacy through light energy. The X39 patch tells your body to emit heat in the form of light, which reflects back into your body, elevating a certain copper peptide. Now, this peptide activates your stem cells, which are the only type that can move throughout your body to heal inflammation. LifeWave offers an affordable membership and has a history of wellness that spans 20 years. It's been around since 2004 to help organizations like SEAL Team 6 and the Olympic swim team stay awake and alert. So today, these non-addictive patches are used by thousands of athletes and military professionals. LifeWave is available in over 80 countries, giving millions the opportunity of maximum wellness. So for more information, testimonials, patents, and studies, go to justpatch.biz. So, Johnny P, what's your final thought here on New York and New Jersey?
I think that we need to keep the pressure on, and we need to keep fighting the good fight. And I'm hopeful that we will be getting relief. And Anthony, I'm with you. The wheels of justice are very, very slow. And yes, this is established precedent. Yes, it's already, done that way. But we have to respect the system that's in place. And the fact that it moves slow, also we should, embrace, because the slower it moves, the quicker you can see an accident before it happens, right? So I'm being very optimistic that we're going to be getting all kinds of great things coming out of the courts, and I could be wrong, but we'll see.
Well, this all these things are examples to me of solutions in search of a problem. It's like, are there legal gun owners or concealed carry people running around shooting people in all these places that we're all worried about? What's happening? I never hear any stories about any of that. Like, why is there a problem? Nobody's causing a problem.
No, they're not. The good guys are not. It's the bad
guys aren't going to pay attention anyway.
Of course
There's
not.
a sign in my window. You can bring guns in. Okay, well, since I'm illegally carrying my gun anyway, I don't really care what the sign says, one way or the other.
Exactly. They don't care what the sign says. And that's the idea. See, I often wonder if these gun grabbers actually understand what they're doing. Sometimes I don't think they understand. Sometimes I do think they understand. It depends on what their agenda is. But they create a gun-free zone. They know now for decades that gun-free zone, the only thing it's doing is it's disarming the good people, and it's inviting the bad people. Exactly.
That's what they want.
Well, I think that's what they want. I really do, because they know, they know the reality of it.
They use it against the law-abiding citizens.
And they can always...
And it's always this crazy liberal that does the shooting anyway.
And the irony of the whole thing is that, there could be a killing with a gun in a gun-free zone, and they'll say, well, this is because we need more gun regulations. It's the gun regulations that actually caused the problem.
That's like me blaming a fork that I'm fat.
Yeah, exactly.
Get rid of forks. Give me a spork.
Anthony will be skinny if we had no forks.
No forks.
That's why he orders appetizers.
That's like blaming your car. Hands. That's like blaming a car. If you got into an accident, DWI, and you murdered somebody, I had nothing to do with it, man. The BMW did.
Well, that's where the PLCAA comes in, and I'm sure John can comment on the PLCAA. That's exactly why that was created. That law was Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. Basically said the firearm manufacturer can't be held responsible for the actions of a person using their product. John, you care to elaborate on that at all?
Yes, I do. So we heard arguments at the Supreme Court on Mexico suing gun makers in the United States, right? This just happened recently where those arguments occurred. Now, what I would hope, and I don't know if this is what's going to happen, but the best case scenario I think hands down, the gun manufacturers are going to win. Mexico's going to lose. But what we absolutely need is a very broad decision that talks about the Protection of Lawful and Commerce in Arms Act, because it's been abused. And the way it's been abused is, one of the cases was with Remington, when Remington was still a company. They were being sued over their advertising.
Yeah,
so
the way they advertised, the way they marketed, right?
Yes. So let's try to skin the cat this way. And again, we need the Supreme Court, and this is a good case for it to be, ruled on. And there's no reason, I don't think they will, but I'm hoping that they will rule broadly on this case and say, no, you cannot go after these manufacturers in any capacity when there's no malfeasance, when there's no knowingly. Forget the advertising, forget everything else. Advertising is a First Amendment protected right. Unless they're making false claims, you've got no injury there. And
yeah, and here's another way they went about it, another little angle they took. They knew that the PLCAA was in place, and they went another route, another angle to try to go after private retailers, small retailers with the Biden era zero tolerance policy. Now you've heard about this, where any small little mistake on an application or paperwork error can get the licensed firearm dealer's license revoked. It's just like any way they can get around it, they can. So what you're saying, John, is a good idea. We do need a sweeping court case that says, no way, this is done. Something that really defines it and makes it that much harder for them to do it.
Yeah, or we need to, all right, we got to write another law and be very specific and say this advertising is protecting, the commerce is protected. All of these are protected things. And, here's a weasel thing that happened in New Jersey. They passed a law talking about just basic responsibility. It was really weird. They went after some gun dealers. They were able to do this civilly. So they're being sued for money by the government of New Jersey for breaking the law, even though there was no law that was broken. So they're going to say that they're criminals. That's the word that they used. But it's not a criminal case. It's a civil case. And we're going to say, okay, this gun dealer did not check that this person was an eligible purchaser for buying fill in the blank, anything but a gun, a magazine, an accessory, and this. And they actually went after these dealers, and the dealers had to settle with the state and pay them money over this activity that not only is legal, it's also constitutionally protected. We're not even talking about serialized parts. We're not talking about NFA items. We're talking about accessories. And the state of New Jersey went after them. So that's the next thing. Keep your eyes on that too. New York is going to be mirroring this. I can guarantee it. California is going to mirror it. Hawaii is going to mirror it. This is a very dangerous precedent. In New Jersey, they're testing it out here, and they already successfully went after, I think, 2 or 3 different gun stores.
And going back to the Mexico case, because I read that entire transcript in court of the court case, and they were, I didn't even realize it at the time until I read that. They were trying to sue Smith & Wesson and other firearm manufacturers because you got all these people in line here, and they're trying to make the connection that because a cartel member got a hold of a Smith & Wesson gun, somehow Smith & Wesson is responsible. But that gun went from the manufacturer to regional distributors to firearm retailers. From there, it most often got picked up by a straw purchaser who sold it to any number of people who then transferred the guns down and eventually get to the cartel members or the people in Mexico. There was like a chain of 5 or 6 different connections before that gun ever got. So how in the world is Smith & Wesson responsible for it's just so ridiculous. So that's why I think you're right, John. I think Smith & Wesson and the other people in that case are going to win against Mexico. Another irony of that whole thing, not irony, it's a reality because Joe Biden was in office. That case took place, I think it was the first district court, wasn't it? Do you remember, John? In Boston? I think Boston is
that's the first. Yeah, that's the first.
So it was in the first. It was in Boston, probably the most
Circuit Court of Appeals.
The First Circuit. It's Boston is probably the most anti-gun court. How did Mexico know to go to that court? Did he have any assistance from the Biden administration? You got to wonder.
Well, then you got to think of this: if that, say, God forbid, Boston agrees with Mexico, we're done.
Well, that's what I mean.
Because
That's
if you kill somebody in a DWI accident, they're going to ask you what you were drinking at the bar, and they're going to go and sue that liquor authority because that's what's going to happen. Oh, I'm suing vodka. I'm suing Budweiser because Budweiser.
Could you
made me
imagine?
drive
Right.
my car.
Right. Could you imagine if that's
what going to do?
Yeah.
If that goes through, you might as well shut down all your businesses. Because if I go and kill somebody in DWI, you're like, well, we're going to blame the car. It's the car's fault, but then the liquor guy sold him the liquor. Then the bar owner's in trouble. Oh God, that'd be a
right. And the sneaker company, because that's what you were using to
guy
push on the gas pedal.
To get out of the
Are
way.
you I was saying you're pushing on the gas pedal with your Nike sneakers? So maybe they're responsible too.
Oh, that would be a disaster. I might even get involved in it.
I wanted to get to something here, and get John's opinion on this. This is an article from our friend John Crump. That it's in Amoland. The headline is GOP House members fail to remove suppressors from the National Firearms Act. I'm sure you're aware of this, and we only have 5 minutes. John, are you aware of this article? Maybe I could just cut to the chase and have you comment on the idea that the fee for registering your suppressors has been eliminated, but they're still a registered item in the NFA. What are your thoughts on this?
So I just, took in some content this morning about this, and I haven't been following this. I didn't read John's article on it, and I'm going to. But what I understand, and I think it's important for people to know, that you have the National Firearms Act, which imposes a tax and a registry, right? So it sounds to me like the lawmakers who were involved in brokering this at that level split the baby and said, well, how about we get rid of the fee? Now, so are we winning something by getting the fee removed? My answer to that is, we are winning something, but there is still this registry.
Well, the registry is the thing is, like as far as the fee, right? Yeah, I get what you're saying. The fee, okay, so we're gaining. We don't have to pay the fee, but the whole point of this thing is to get rid of the registry part.
The whole thing should be scrapped completely.
Of course. Gun Owners of America is on it right now. There's going to be a serious backlash because of this.
They are. Gun Owners of America are on it, and I believe the NRA is on it, and I believe some of the other players, they're all working on this. This is all happening. It's actively, there's lobbying going on.
Exactly.
Just because we don't know what's going on or we're not hearing the noise, that doesn't mean that action isn't happening. And GOA, they've been the most vocal.
Absolutely. John, we got to wrap it up. Thanks so much for being on the show today. We always love having you. You're a good friend. And tell people where they can find you.
You can find me at thepenpatriot.com. I want news tips, John at thepenpatriot.com. I write for Bearing Arms. I write for a whole bunch of places. Big shout out to News 2A. Sean said that we should all be wearing the shirts, but there's only 2 of us wearing the shirts today. But check out news2a.com. They're doing some projects over there, and I want to hear from you, John at thepenpatriot.com.
And we're 7 months away from the Christmas show.
Oh yeah, we're seven months away from the Christmas show. So you and Charlie better block it out in your calendar. All right, thanks, John. Thanks, guys, and thank you for watching the show on Rumble and YouTube and all our social media outlets. Also, you can catch the podcast on practically any podcast platform out there. My name is Dan Wass, and just remember, the Second Amendment is not a privilege; it's your right.